guys, and welcome to the Etches Collection YouTube channel. So I'm Emma from MGems, and I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about some ammonites and other fossils that are common to find along the Jurassic coast. So I have a lot of specimens in front of me today that we're going to kind of show and tell and have a look at together. So I'm going to start with the biggest one because it is the most impressive. So this is a beautiful example of an ammonite. So you can see the size of it here, and it's got lovely suture lines all over it that you can see exposed. So the suture lines are actually beneath the ammonite's ribs. So I'll show you a model here so you guys can understand what these creatures actually look like. But they were these kind of squid-like creatures that went through the water column using gas propulsion. So you can see they're not the most attractive looking creatures, and they had these kind of ribbing on their shells, but some of them were smooth. So they had a huge variety of types, sizes, shells, colors, and that's why they're so important to geologists today, because we use them to date rocks. So the evolution of an ammonite, depending on the species, we can provide an age for that kind of layer of rock. So they're really interesting. So another example of an ammonite we can find is this one here. So you can see we've got a color change going on with this one. So this one's a lot darker. So this is an Amalfius Ammonite that is also found along the Jurassic coast. So again, we can see the ribbing of this one. So the suture lines aren't so prominent in this specimen in particular. And then we have another specimen here, which is a Litocerus, and this one's got some beautiful suture lines exposed. So this has been coated with something called paraloid, which kind of adds a little shimmer to the shell. So if you are a amateur fossil hunter or a collector, you might want to add a little bit of varnish to your specimens to just kind of enhance those, kind of natural properties. And paraloid is an excellent kind of preservative that museums also use to kind of preserve that shell. So we can see in this example the beautiful suture lines that almost look like leaves. So they're really lovely stuff. Now, along with ammonites, there were gastropods and nautiluses alive at the same time. So I've got some examples here of gastropods. Now, these were sea snails. So a lot of people think ammonites were also snails, but we've seen that they were more like squids, whereas these shells are fossils of snails that existed in our Jurassic seas. So these are a lot smaller, but you can see they have that same kind of spiral shell, but there are key differences. And then the Nautilus is actually known as a living fossil. So this isn't a very good example of a Nautilus fossil, but you can see that kind of chunky shell that goes around here, and we can see the chambers as well. So Nautiluses are still alive in our seas today. So they look like this little guy here. So you can see they're similar to ammonites, but also quite different. They have a much simpler shell, and they're, got a lot of tentacles coming out. And I actually have a photo here of what they look like in our modern oceans. So we can see here, you guys might have seen them, or you might not. They're not the most common of creatures. A lot of people forget that they are actually still living in our seas today. So that's a little bit about the kind of spirally shelled fossils we can find, but we also find straight shelled fossils. So these are like your belemnites or your orthocone nautiloids, which I don't have an example of today, but they're kind of the straighter ones. So this is a lovely example of a belemnite fossil. Now, belemnites were squids, and they're kind of similar to modern cuttlefish that you can see in our oceans, and they have tentacles, and what you find is actually one part of the belemnite. So the rest is, eaten by other predators, or it decomposes when the creature dies and it goes to the bottom of the seafloor. You only get fossilized the hard parts of the creature or the cartilage, and that's what a belemnite fossil is. So that's why you kind of find these bullet-like shapes that I have here. So yeah, that's just a brief kind of show and tell of the fossils we can find. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Like and subscribe for more, and yeah, thank you for coming and joining me on the Etches collection.